I caught my boyfriend cheating and he begged for forgiveness. But when I talked to the other woman, I learned the shocking truth about their year-long affair. I, F29, discovered my boyfriend, M32 of 6 years, has been cheating on me with a coworker. I'm devastated and need advice on how to handle this situation. George and I met during our sophomore year of college. We were both part of the same study group for a challenging economics class. I remember being struck by his quick wit and infectious laugh. We bonded over our shared love of obscure indie bands and terrible B-movies. It wasn't long before we started dating. Our relationship felt different from the start. George was attentive and caring in a way my previous boyfriends hadn't been. He'd leave little notes in my textbooks to cheer me up during exam weeks. When I got food poisoning after a sketchy campus food truck incident, he stayed up all night taking care of me. I come from a family of high achievers. My older sister is a successful lawyer, and my younger brother is in medical school. There was always pressure to excel, and I often felt like I was falling short. George was the first person who made me feel truly accepted for who I was. He encouraged me to pursue my passion for graphic design, even when my parents pushed me towards a more practical career. After graduation, we both landed entry-level jobs in the same city. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to take the next step, so we decided to move in together. We found a cozy apartment in a bustling neighborhood, complete with a quirky landlady who always tried to set us up with her grandchildren despite us clearly being a couple. The first few years of living together were a whirlwind of new experiences. We adopted a cat named Whiskers from a local shelter. He was a scraggly orange tabby with a crooked tail who immediately stole our hearts. George and I would spend weekends exploring the city, trying new restaurants and dreaming about our future. We weren't without our challenges. George's job at a marketing firm was demanding, often requiring late nights and weekend work. I sometimes felt neglected, but I tried to be understanding. We'd argue about household chores or money, but we always managed to work things out. About 2 years ago, George got an offer from a tech startup. The salary was better, and he was excited about the opportunity to work on cutting-edge projects. I was thrilled for him, even though I knew it would mean longer hours. At first, things were great. George would come home buzzing with energy, talking a mile a minute about the innovative ideas his team was working on. But gradually, I noticed a shift. He became more secretive about his work, claiming it was all confidential. He started going out more with his work friends, often coming home late smelling of alcohol and perfume. When I tried to talk to him about it, he'd get defensive. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," he'd say. Or, "Why can't you just trust me?" I felt like I was going crazy. My gut was screaming that something was wrong, but George kept dismissing my concerns. This wasn't the first time I'd dealt with infidelity. My first serious boyfriend in high school cheated on me with my best friend at the time. It took me years to fully trust someone again after that. George knew this history, which made his behavior even more hurtful. Things came to a head last week. George was in the shower and his laptop pinged with a new message. I know I shouldn't have looked, but something compelled me to check. It was from someone named Shelly with a heart emoji. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through their conversation history. They'd been having an affair for months. There were explicit photos, plans for hotel meetups, and messages about a future together. I felt like I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just a one-time mistake or a drunken kiss. This was a full-blown relationship happening right under my nose. When George got out of the shower, I confronted him. At first, he tried to deny it, accusing me of invading his privacy. But when I showed him the messages, he broke down. He cried and begged for forgiveness, saying Shelly meant nothing to him and it was just a stupid mistake. I was too shocked and hurt to even respond. I packed a bag and went to stay with my sister. George has been calling and texting nonstop, alternating between apologies and anger. Part of me still loves him and wants to believe we can work through this. We've built a life together over 6 years. We have a lease, shared finances, and of course, there's Whiskers. But another part of me knows I can never trust him again. How can I believe anything he says when he's been lying to me for months? And what about Shelly? Does she know about me? Is she going through the same pain I am? I'm not sure what to do next. The thought of starting over at 29 terrifies me. We had talked about marriage and kids. Now all those dreams feel shattered. I worry about George's mental health if I end things completely. He's struggled with depression in the past, and I'm afraid of what he might do. Then there's the practical side of things. Our lease isn't up for another 6 months. We have a joint bank account and credit card. Who gets to keep Whiskers? The thought of losing my cat on top of everything else is almost unbearable. I've always prided myself on being independent, but this situation has left me feeling lost and vulnerable. I've built so much of my life around George. We have the same friend group. We go to the same gym. We even have standing brunch plans with his parents every other Sunday. The thought of untangling all of that is overwhelming. My family has been supportive, but I can tell they're frustrated. They never fully warmed up to George, always feeling like he wasn't ambitious enough for me. My mom keeps saying, "I told you so," which isn't helpful right now. My sister is more understanding, having gone through a difficult divorce herself a few years ago. I've been throwing myself into work, staying late at the office to avoid going home to an empty apartment. My coworkers have noticed something's off, but I'm not ready to share the full story with them yet. It's hard to focus on design projects when my personal life is in shambles. I keep replaying moments from our relationship in my head, wondering if there were signs I missed. Was he always this good at lying, or did it develop over time? Were there moments when he almost told me the truth? I'm second-guessing everything. I could really use some advice on how to handle this situation. Should I hear George out and consider couples counseling? Is there any coming back from this level of betrayal? How do I even begin to disentangle our lives? Any words of wisdom or support would be greatly appreciated. I'm feeling lost, heartbroken, and unsure of what the future holds. Update 1. It's been about a month since my last post, and I wanted to update everyone on what's happened. First, I want to thank everyone who commented and offered support. Your advice really helped me gain perspective on the situation. After staying with my sister for a week, I decided to move back to our apartment to figure things out. George was still there, sleeping on the couch. We had some long, emotional conversations where he expressed deep remorse and begged for another chance. He said he'd cut off all contact with Shelley and even offered to quit his job. Part of me wanted to believe him. We have so much history together, and the thought of throwing it all away was painful. But every time I looked at him, all I could see were the lies and betrayal. I kept thinking about all the times he gaslit me when I expressed concern about his behavior. I realized I needed space to process everything, so I asked George to move out temporarily. He was upset, but agreed it was for the best. Once he was gone, I felt like I could breathe again. I threw myself into work and spent time with friends I'd neglected during our relationship. My best friend Mia was especially supportive. She came over almost every night, bringing ice cream and trashy movies to distract me. We'd known each other since high school, but had drifted apart when I started dating George. It felt good to reconnect and remember who I was outside of my relationship. About 2 weeks after George moved out, I had an unexpected encounter. I was grabbing coffee before work when I saw a familiar face. It was Shelley, George's coworker. My heart started racing, but I decided to approach her. To my surprise, she seemed genuinely shocked to see me. It turns out George had told her he was single. We ended up talking for hours, and I learned their affair had been going on for nearly a year, much longer than George had admitted to me. Shelley showed me messages where he talked about a future together and badmouthed me. It was painful, but I'm glad I know the full truth now. After that conversation, I knew there was no going back. I texted George that I wanted to meet to discuss logistics for ending our lease and dividing belongings. He showed up at our apartment unannounced that night, clearly drunk. He alternated between crying and yelling, accusing me of ruining everything by talking to Shelley. When he started throwing things, I called the police. They escorted him out, and I filed for an emergency protective order. The next day, George's mom called me in tears. Apparently, he'd shown up at her house threatening self-harm. She wanted me to talk to him, but I held firm and told her I couldn't be responsible for his mental health anymore. I gave her the number for a crisis hotline and blocked her number. I'm now staying with Mia while I look for my own place. George's brother came by to collect his things, which was emotional, but went smoothly. We've agreed that I'll keep Whiskers since I've always been his primary caretaker. The process of untangling our lives has been challenging. We had to close our joint bank account and credit card, which meant hours on the phone with customer service representatives. I had to explain the situation to our landlord, who was thankfully understanding and agreed to let me take over the lease on my own. One of the hardest parts has been dealing with our shared friend group. Some have taken sides, while others are trying to remain neutral. I've lost a few friends who believe George's version of events. It's been painful, but it's also shown me who my true friends are. I've started therapy to help process everything. My therapist has been helping me work through the trauma of the betrayal and rebuild my self-esteem. We've been exploring patterns in my relationships and why I might have ignored red flags with George. Work has been a welcome distraction. I've thrown myself into a new project, redesigning our company's branding. My boss has been understanding, giving me flexibility when I need it for appointments or bad days. There are still moments when I miss George and the life we had together. The other day, I found an old concert ticket stub from one of our first dates tucked away in a drawer. It brought back a flood of happy memories, which made the current reality even more painful. But overall, I'm starting to feel stronger. I'm rediscovering parts of myself that I had pushed aside during my relationship with George. I've started taking a pottery class, something I've always wanted to try but never made time for. I'm taking things one day at a time and trying to be gentle with myself as I navigate this new chapter of my life. Thank you again to everyone who offered advice and encouragement. It really made a difference during this difficult time. Update 2. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have progressed. Life has settled into a new normal, and I'm doing much better than I ever expected. After staying with Mia for a few weeks, I found a cute studio apartment that allows pets. It's small, but it feels like home. Whiskers has adjusted well and seems to enjoy having me all to himself. I've been focusing on self-care and rebuilding my life one day at a time. I haven't had any direct contact with George since the night I called the police. His family tried reaching out a few times, but I maintained firm boundaries. Through mutual friends, I heard he moved to another state for a new job. Part of me hopes he's getting the help he needs, but I know that's not my responsibility anymore. The most unexpected development has been my friendship with Shelley. After our initial coffee shop encounter, we kept in touch. She was dealing with her own feelings of betrayal and guilt, and we found comfort in supporting each other. We even attended a few support group meetings together. It's an unusual situation, but I'm grateful for her honesty and the closure it provided. Work has been a great distraction. I threw myself into a big project redesigning our company's website. It was challenging and sometimes stressful, but it felt good to focus my energy on something productive. My boss noticed my hard work and ended up giving me a promotion. The extra income has been helpful as I've been rebuilding my savings. I also started volunteering at the animal shelter where we adopted Whiskers. It's been incredibly rewarding to help other animals find their forever homes. There's a senior cat named Ginger who reminds me so much of Whiskers. I'm seriously considering adopting her as a companion for him. My relationships with friends and family have grown stronger. Mia and I are closer than ever. We've started a tradition of weekly game nights with some other friends. I've also been spending more time with my sister and her kids. Being Aunt Emma to my niece and nephew has brought so much joy into my life. I've started dating again, casually. It's been both exciting and terrifying. My first date post-George was a disaster. I spilled wine all over myself and couldn't stop nervously rambling about cat behaviors, but each date gets a little easier. I'm taking things slow and being upfront about my past. I've met some nice guys, but I'm in no rush to jump into another serious relationship. One unexpected challenge has been dealing with mutual friends who are getting married or having babies. It's bittersweet to attend these events alone, knowing that George and I had once talked about our own future milestones, but I'm learning to be happy for my friends while also acknowledging my own feelings. I've been focusing on personal growth and trying new things. I joined a local hiking group and have been exploring trails in our area. It's been a great way to clear my head and meet new people. I'm also taking an online course in web design to expand my skills at work. Therapy has been incredibly helpful in processing everything that happened. I've been working through issues of trust and self-worth, and I'm starting to feel more confident in myself and my decisions. There have been some tough moments. Last month would have been George and I's anniversary, and I found myself feeling unexpectedly emotional. I took the day off work and treated myself to a spa day, focusing on self-care and reflection. I've also had to navigate some awkward social situations. I ran into George's best friend at the grocery store, which was uncomfortable for both of us. We made polite small talk, but it was a reminder of how much my social circle has changed. Financially, things have been tight as I adjust to living on a single income. I've had to make some budget cuts and pick up some freelance work on the side. But it feels good to be fully in control of my finances for the first time in years. My family relationships have improved. My parents have been more supportive than I expected, helping me move and checking in regularly. My mom even apologized for her initial "I told you so" reaction, which meant a lot to me. There are still days when I miss the life I thought I would have with George. But those moments are becoming less frequent and less intense. I'm proud of how I've handled this situation and excited about the future. I'm rediscovering old hobbies and trying new things. I've started taking a ceramics class and I'm terrible at it, but I'm having fun. I'm planning a solo trip to Europe next year, something I've always wanted to do but never had the courage to pursue when I was with George. It feels scary but also exhilarating to be making plans just for myself. To anyone going through something similar, know that it does get better. Trust your instincts, prioritize your own well-being, and don't be afraid to lean on your support system. You're stronger than you know. Thank you all again for your support throughout this journey. It's meant more than I can express.